Question 5 is a 7-mark question, and the question read, predict the ongoing effects on tissues of the left ankle for a period of up to 6 weeks if the appropriate management procedures were not followed. For this particular question, our verb is predict. If we have a look at the Board of Studies and their glossary key terms, the Board of Studies says, suggests what may happen based on the available information. So based on our information of what we have about the injury here, we have to make some judgments about what is going to take place. We know that it's the left ankle. We know that we need to discuss for up to a period of 6 weeks. We also know that the appropriate management procedures were not followed. So that will give us some clues about how we need to answer this particular question. Our syllabus suggests that it should be looking at this particular dot point: soft tissue injuries, tears, sprains, contusions, sprains, abrasions, lacerations, blisters, but in particular the inflammatory response. We're looking very carefully at that inflammatory response. We also need to consider the management of soft tissue injuries, looking at the RISA effect, but in particular we're looking at without RISA. So that's how we need to approach this question. If we were to have a look at the marking guidelines, we'll be able to see that to get into a 6 or a 7 for this particular response, you needed to be able to talk about the inflammatory response. You need to also have understanding, or a deep understanding, of how the recovery process is slowed because of the lack of RISA that's being utilised in the recovery. You need to have, again, a deep understanding of the different phases. So the inflammatory phase, the repair phase, and the remodeling phase, they need to be discussed. You need to be able to use sophisticated and specific terminology and use examples to support your answer. The boys who didn't get into that 6 or 7, but got a 4 or 5, they were able to discuss the inflammatory response. So they were able to do that and look at the different phases of that inflammatory response, but they didn't, or they weren't able to clearly show how the recovery process is being slowed. That was the big difference there between those answers. And if you didn't get into a 4 or 5, if you looked into a 3 or 2, then you were probably more along the lines of looking at the signs and symptoms of a soft tissue injury, discussing the effects of swelling and redness around the site of a soft tissue injury, which is correct, but you needed to go further and definitely look at the inflammatory response for this particular answer. If we have a look at a sample answer to give us a look at what we're looking for. A quick look at a good response here. We can see firstly that it's well written. That's the first thing I'd like you to take note of. It's easy to read and well set out. In terms of the underlining, it's clear for me that they have a good understanding of the inflammatory response. I can see that it's very clear there. They've got the different stages or phases of the inflammatory response. First, second phase, and the third phase down here, which is great. It's clear for me that they've identified the left ankle as the injured body part, and they've also looked in good depth about the different types of things that are going to occur because of the non-use of RISA. So we can see uncontrolled swelling, prolonging the recovery process, and again down here they've discussed the prolonging the recovery process. I can see some good understanding of terminology, collagen. They've spoken about phagocytes at some other point in the response, vasoconstriction. They're using the correct terms in a sophisticated manner. So that's the type of answer that we're looking for to get a 7 or a 6 for this particular response.